I saw a question on one of the various forums asking about what 1/72nd scale models could you get for Battletech. So I know I'd looked into this at one point for battle troops purposes, so then I decided to kind of collect up what I had found. And it turns out there's quite a few mechs and even a few vehicles and aerotech that you can get 1/72nd scale models for. Now here's a supposed Robotech Defenders Scorpion Quad, except it's not from Macross, so it's not Robotech, and it's not called a Scorpion. There is, and here's like Robotech Changers. Obviously the Wasps and Stingers. Here's a Battlemaster. Again, it's one of these Robotech Defenders things. Except there's a strange feature. It's got a strange name. It's called a Zion. And it's not really from Robotech either. So WTF. And you can find a Griffin. Yet another weird Robotech Defender thing. There's something odd about these Robotech Defenders. They're not actually related to Robotech and Harmony Gold at all. They're actually yet another party in this strange IP mixture. And here's a Thunderbolt too, as yet another one of these Robotech Defenders. Although the word Robotech is attached to these models, these have nothing to do with the Robotech of Harmony Gold that was the supposed sub-licensee of Macross. And here's the Shadowhawk. And there's even a Goliath with some kind of like some manned platform attached to it here. And here's the Scorpion Quad again, yet with some armored personnel carrier of some kind. And you can even get a factory. It has like a Warhammer and then some thing which I don't recognize in it. But then they also have these really weird mechs that I've never seen before. I don't recognize these, and I don't think these are Robotech. I don't think these are Macross. They're certainly not Battletech. This one's called the Aqualo. It's another one of these Robotech Defenders. And here's another weird one here. It doesn't fit any of the other anime series. So I don't know if these are original or if these are from yet some other even more obscure anime that I don't know what it is. And here's again another shot of the factory floor version, which was obviously like the internal bays of the SDF-1, but here from Macross, but here it's like a factory floor. And here's, of course, the Warhammer / another one of these Robotech Defenders. And here's another one of these. They also have these changers, which are transforming like the Veritech fighters. But that's like that weird cannon thing is something I don't recognize. And here's the airborne attackers with a strange mech dangling off of it that I don't recognize. So whatever that is. And here's like a Griffin with some standard like vehicle of some kind. And what's even more bizarre is these are even named after the Valkyries, yet they're not Valkyries and they're not Robotech. These are another sub-licensee, but they didn't have a backstory on any of their mechs. They just printed the mechs and sold them as kits in these boxes, but there's no explanation, no story, no anything going along with these. That's why these kits and these changers and defenders didn't go anywhere, because they didn't have a backstory, and they were just kind of copies of the other various other mechs out there. And there's like some weird other ones here. I don't recognize this one. And what makes these even more bizarre is they've been renamed. Like they are like the Dromedon, the Zoltek, the Thorin, and other strange, weird names. You would think that if they were trying to be Robotech or Macross, they would at least keep the names of the robots and not make up weird new names. And these particular mechs aren't even from Macross anyway. These are Dougram mechs of various kinds. And here's like a diorama Guardian module, which is just a gear-walking air mech Stinger or Wasp or something. Here's the Robotech Defenders Strike Force, which is like a Thunderbolt in a helicopter. But just to be safe, Robotech Defenders made sure they could sell the Thunderbolts just by itself. Another strange feature is that some of these boxes are labeled 1/48th scale, but they're actually 1/72nd scale. And this is also another one of the reasons why I think the story I gave in the Longbow for the IP Wars is the correct story. For I think Harmony Gold sub-licensed out to a whole bunch of different companies and places the art from Macross without having the permission to sub-license it out. And this weird Robotech Defenders series is part of that. They basically sub-licensed this from Robotech. They slapped on the Robotech Changers and Defenders names onto various models, plus added a couple of their own. Oh, and also mixed and matched from other anime series while renaming everything. That's kind of like the original mechs of Battle Droids. Except Battle Droids had an actual game attached to it and had some backstory added instead of just printing plastic models. Then when Macross found out that Robotech, instead of distributing Macross inside the US like they were supposed to, was instead going off sub-licensing off stuff and creating their own episodes and shows, which means they started with the Macross story and shows and then altered the plot lines and created new seasons and new anime shows like to continue on this Macross story with like a different alternate universe. Macross pulled the plug on Harmony Gold and Robotech, and that's where the beginning of the chain collapse began in the IP Wars. I don't believe the story that's written up in the Sarna discussions, and I think what I described is what actually happened. If you know more or have more input, please put it into the comments, because this is it really would be interesting to find out what actually happened. And when I say what actually happened, I mean from the perspective of the fans and players and viewers, rather than the made-up story that the attorneys will eventually construct. And this is an interesting one. On the left is the actual Robotech Zentradi officer's battle pod. And on the right is the fake Robotech. The Macross Valkyrie / Battletech Wasp is called an Orbot. But look how perfectly the font and the characters have been copied for the word Robotech on the two boxes. Now let's get to actual Macross models. So this is one of the Valkyries, probably a Wasp. This one's a Stinger Valkyrie. Basically, the VF-1A is the Stinger. The VF-1S is like a Wasp. And there's basically slightly different paint jobs on the different Veritechs. And these are kind of showing off some of them. This would transform into the Phoenix Hawk, even though it's the VF-1A Super Valkyrie, because it has those two engine pods. And this one is the Destroid monster, which existed briefly in Battle Droids as the Behemoth Mech before the Behemoth became a tank. And here is the Macross, not the Robotech, but the Macross version of the Marauder, i.e. the original actual creator of the model. This one's here's the Rifleman. I'm surprised I didn't... Oh, actually, no, we didn't see it in the Robotech Defenders series. And this is basically a Crusader, but it's yet another variant of an armored Valkyrie. So the Crusader is just yet another armored Valkyrie. And I think if you look at the butt of the Crusader metal miniature unseen model, you can see the little wingtips there. So I actually think that it was a lamb. And this one's the original Macross version of the Stinger, which is, again, just another Valkyrie. And here's the Destroid Spartan. I think this is the actual model kit that I built for my Archer video. However, in the actual model, the missile pods don't open, only the central gun pod opens. This is the Destroid Tomahawk, aka the Battletech Warhammer. So again, very convenient that you can get the 1/72nd scale model. And then here's the Battletech Longbow / Destroid Phalanx. Again, conveniently available. So you can actually get it. However, this model kit tends to be a little bit hard to find and on the expensive side if it's in 1/72nd. But if it's like off scale, like 1/100th or something like that, it's suddenly a lot cheaper, but it just doesn't work. Just why couldn't those Robotech Defenders people just have built the longbow and called that the Aquilo instead of making some dopey underwater thing and called it Aquilo? There's the actual parts from the Warhammer / Tomahawk inside the model kit. Here's the Destroid Defender / Rifleman in another version of the 1/72nd kit, and yet another version of the Rifleman, another 1/72nd kit. I don't know if the plastic kit's parts inside are actually the same or if it's slightly different. Now let's move on to Crusher Joe. This thing kind of looks like the Samurai. Crusher Joe fighter jets. Here's the original Ostal / Locust from Crusher Joe. And here's the original Galleon, which in Crusher Joe is called Galleon. So Battletech just took it straight up, or Battle Droids at the time took it straight up as the Galleon. Now again, to find these 1/48th, the further off from 25mm scale it is, the cheaper it is. I've noticed that anyway, and finding a 1/72nd Locust is very hard. 1/48th you can find, and 1/100th is cheap because no one wants it. I think this is an early Aerodyne dropship of some kind, but I'm not fully sure. This is the Crusher Joe Minerva. Now let's go spend some time in Dougram land with those combat armors. Here's the Wolverine / Blockhead. Yet another mech that you can get. And the Shadowhawk. You can also get as a... This is from Dougram. So you can get that. Another similar model kit. It's a slightly different box. I don't know if the parts are the same or not, but it's the same effect. This one is the Scorpion, at least in Battletech, the quad Scorpion, but this one has 6 legs, so you'd have to remove 2 of the legs. Here's the quote-unquote Bigfoot, which is basically the Battlemaster. Here comes the Dougram Round Facer / Battletech Griffin. So, very conveniently available. And here is the Dougram slash the Shadowhawk again from a different view, a different kit, and a Thunderbolt. This which is called the Ironfoot. So Thunderbolt is available. And yet another view of another version of the Shadowhawk. And finally, an interesting view from the back of a Shadowhawk with some kind of a rocket or weapons kit. I'm not sure what that is. So in conclusion, there's lots and lots of model kits. I mean, this Marauder happens to be at 1/100th scale, but I've seen it 1/72nd scale. It's ridiculously expensive when it's at 1/72nd scale, and also at 1/48th scale, but at 1/100th it's cheap, but again, it just doesn't work quite right. So in the end, you may have to resort to 3D printing, but if you are lucky enough to use mechs and vehicles that you can get, then it's a lot easier.